Humans are insane, Janus muttered, staring at the hollow screen in the dimly lit Galactic Council chamber. A chorus of agreement rose from the assembled alien dignitaries, their eyes wide with disbelief. On the screen, a lone human soldier faced down an entire battalion of Krell warriors on the remote colony world of Zephyrus. Private Matthew Shaw stood his ground, a wild glint in his eyes as he jury-rigged mining explosives into makeshift grenades. The Krell charged, their reptilian scales glinting in the harsh sunlight, their razor-sharp claws extended for the kill. Shaw didn't flinch. With a feral grin, he lobbed the grenades into the heart of the Krell formation and dove for cover. The explosions ripped through the ravine, the shock waves triggering a massive rock slide that buried half the battalion under tons of rubble. As the dust settled, Shaw emerged from his hiding spot and sprinted for the colony's satellite array. His fingers flew over the controls as he hacked into the Krell's communication network. "All units, fall back," he barked in a perfect imitation of the Krell commander's guttural tones. "The humans have reinforcements incoming. Retreat to the drop zone for immediate extraction." Chaos erupted in the Krell ranks as confused soldiers received the false orders. Shaw seized the opportunity, picking off the disoriented Krell one by one with his sniper rifle. When his ammunition ran dry, he lured the stragglers into cleverly concealed traps and mowed them down with a reprogrammed construction mech. By the time Galactic Council reinforcements arrived, the battle was over. An entire Krell battalion neutralized by a single human soldier. Janus shook his head in amazement as he recounted the tale to his fellow counselors. This is but one example of the unpredictable, audacious methods employed by humans throughout the war, he explained. Time and again, they turned certain defeat into shocking victory. As more council members chimed in with their own stories of human exploits, a grim realization settled over the chamber. The galaxy had changed forever with humanity's arrival on the galactic stage. The old rules and conventions no longer applied. How do we integrate this chaotic, uncontrollable species into our delicate political balance? One counselor asked, her voice trembling. We barely understand how they think or operate. Janus had no answer. He could only stare at the holoscreen, at the image of Matthew Shaw standing tall amidst the wreckage of the Krell battalion, and wonder what the future held for the galaxy now that humans were a part of it. One thing was certain. The universe would never be the same again. In the depths of the Krell Empire's most heavily guarded data center, a flurry of activity erupted as alarms blared and warning lights flashed. Technicians scrambled to their stations, frantically typing commands in a desperate attempt to thwart the relentless cyber assault orchestrated by the Void Wraiths. "Sir, they've breached our primary firewall," a young Krell technician reported, his clawed hands trembling over the console. "They're accessing our military network as we speak." The data center supervisor, a grizzled Krell veteran, banged his hand against the wall in frustration. "Impossible! No one has ever penetrated our defenses so easily. Find the source of the intrusion and shut it down now." Light years away in the cramped confines of his repurposed cargo ship, Zero Kerrigan grinned as his custom-built algorithms tore through the Krell's defenses seamlessly. His mismatched eyes, one an electric blue cybernetic implant, darted across the holographic displays surrounding him. "Gotcha," he murmured, his fingers a blur as he navigated the labyrinthine network. "All right, team, I'm in. Siphoning intel now." Zero's crew, a motley assortment of human and alien hackers, cheered as terabytes of classified Krell data flooded their screens. They pored over the information, their eyes widening as the scope of the planned Krell offensive became clear. "They're targeting New Solaris," a Twi'lek hacker named Ixia breathed, her leku twitching with agitation. "The colony is practically defenseless. If the Krell attack now, it'll be a massacre." Zero's eyes sharp as he studied the tactical readouts. "Not if we have anything to say about it. Patch me through to Admiral Vance at Terran Command. We need to get this intel to the front lines, ASAP." As the Void Wraiths raced to relay their findings, the Galactic Council chamber erupted into chaos. Commander Vrax, his eyes smoldering with barely held back rage, towered over the cowering counselors. "You see what your inaction has wrought?" he bellowed, his clawed fists slamming against the podium. "The humans run wild, unchecked, while the Krell Empire suffers the consequences. No more. Either you bring them to heel, or we will. The counselors, their faces ashen, stammered out feeble platitudes and promises of diplomacy. But even as they dispatched their envoy to the Krell homeworld, a sense of impending doom settled over the chamber. In the skies above New Solaris, Terran warships assembled in a defensive formation, their hulls dripping with weaponry. Admiral Vance, a grizzled veteran of countless battles, stood on the bridge of his flagship, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Prepare for incoming hostiles," he barked, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "The Krell think they can catch us off guard, but thanks to our friends in the Void Wraiths, we'll be ready for them." As the first Krell ships dropped out of hyperspace, the Terran fleet opened fire, their weapons cutting through the void with ruthless precision. The Krell, caught off guard by the humans' foreknowledge of their plans, scrambled to adapt their tactics. In the heart of the battle, human ingenuity and unpredictability once again proved to be the deciding factor. Admiral Vance, drawing upon the intel provided by Zero and his team, unleashed a series of unorthodox maneuvers that left the Krell reeling. Fighters danced through the chaos, engaging in daring hit-and-run attacks, while boarding parties infiltrated Krell ships, sabotaging critical systems from within. On the surface of New Solaris, Terran ground forces employed guerrilla tactics, drawing the Krell into carefully laid traps and ambushes. As the battle raged, the Galactic Council's diplomatic envoy arrived at the Krell homeworld, only to find themselves caught in the middle of a political maelstrom. Krell hardliners, emboldened by the attack on New Solaris, demanded a full-scale war against the humans, while moderates argued for a more cautious approach. In the end, it was the humans' unconventional tactics and the Void Wraith's timely intervention that turned the tide. The Krell, their forces in disarray and their leadership divided, were forced to withdraw from New Solaris, their offensive blunted before it could truly begin. But even as the dust settled and the Terran forces celebrated their hard-fought victory, a sense of unease pervaded the galaxy. The Krell Empire, humiliated and enraged, would not soon forget this defeat, and the Galactic Council, struggling to adapt to the new realities shaped by human ingenuity and audacity, found itself facing an uncertain future. For better or worse, the universe had been forever changed by humanity's arrival on the galactic stage. And as the counselors, the Krell, and the countless other species that called the galaxy home grappled with this new reality, one question loomed large in their minds. What would the humans do next? The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with tension as reports of the Zephyrian crisis flashed across holoscreens. Ambassador Zoran Kesh's stern face dominated the central display, his voice crackling through subspace static. High Counselor Vex denies any Zephyrian involvement with the Krell, Kesh reported, his antennae twitching with barely concealed frustration. But something doesn't add up. I've been granted permission to investigate, albeit under close observation. Janus leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Proceed with caution, Ambassador. The Zephyrians are not to be underestimated. As Kesh's transmission ended, the chamber erupted into heated debate. Counselors from a dozen species argued over the implications of Zephyrian involvement in the conflict. This is precisely what we feared, a Valeran representative hissed, tendrils writhing. Human aggression has destabilized the entire sector. Before Janus could respond, alarms blared throughout the chamber. A junior aide burst through the doors, face pale. Counselors, we've lost contact with Ambassador Kesh's team, she gasped. There's been an explosion on Zephyria Prime. Silence fell over the assembly as the implications sank in. Janus rose to his feet, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. We need eyes on the ground, he declared. Dispatch a recon team immediately. As the council scrambled to respond, the scene shifted to the smoking ruins of Zephyria Prime's capital. Ambassador Kesh stumbled through debris-strewn streets, coughing as acrid smoke filled his lungs. The spaceport where his ship had been docked was nothing more than a smoldering crater. Kesh's cybernetic eye whirred as it scanned for survivors, but the readings were grim. Most of his delegation had been aboard the ship when it exploded. He was alone on a hostile world, cut off from the council and surrounded by potential enemies. A shadow fell across his path. Kesh looked up to see High Counselor Zara Vex approaching, flanked by heavily armed guards. Her scaled skin gleamed in the firelight, eyes cold and calculating. "A tragic accident, Ambassador," Vex said, her voice devoid of emotion. "You have our deepest condolences." Kesh's antennae twitched, sensing the lie beneath her words. "This was no accident, Counselor. Someone wanted to silence us." Vex's lips curled into a mirthless smile. "A bold accusation. Perhaps it would be best if you accompanied us to a secure location. For your own safety, of course." As Vex's guards closed in, Kesh's mind raced. He needed to find a way to contact the Council, to warn them of the true extent of Zephyrian involvement. But first, he had to survive. Across the galaxy, in a nondescript bar on a backwater mining colony, a lone human sat nursing a drink. The woman's eyes, one natural brown and one glowing blue, scanned the room with practiced nonchalance. To the casual observer, she appeared to be just another spacer taking a break between jobs. But Samantha Carter was far more than she appeared. A seasoned diplomat with a talent for unconventional problem-solving, she had been quietly making inroads with key figures in the Zephyrian government for months. As news of the explosion on Zephyria Prime flashed across the bar's hollow screens, Samantha's cybernetic eye flickered, processing the information. She downed her drink and stood, leaving a generous tip on the bar. It was time to call in some favors. The fate of the Galactic realm might just depend on it. Samantha Carter's encrypted comm unit buzzed as she slipped out of the dingy bar. A familiar voice crackled through the static. "Carter, we've got a situation. Zendari system, code red." Her cybernetic eye whirred, processing the coordinates flashing across her retinal display. "Understood, Admiral. What's the play?" Admiral Vance's voice was grim. "Dr. Briggs and his team stumbled onto something big, ancient alien tech. They've jury-rigged it into a weapon that just decimated a Krell battalion." Samantha's breath caught. "Effective, I take it?" "Devastatingly. The Krell are in full retreat, but this has Council written all over it. I need you on site yesterday. Contain the situation before it spirals." "On it," Samantha replied, already plotting her course to the nearest spaceport. As her stealth shuttle dropped out of FTL on the outskirts of the Zendari system, Samantha's sensors lit up with activity. Krell ships swarmed the area, keeping their distance from the planet where Briggs and his team were holed up. She deftly maneuvered through the debris field, relying on her ship's advanced cloaking technology to slip past the Krell patrols. As she entered the planet's atmosphere, the true scale of the devastation became clear. The research outpost was a smoking ruin, surrounded by the twisted wreckage of Krell assault craft. In the center of the carnage stood a massive structure, clearly of alien origin, jam-packed with improvised human modifications. Samantha landed her shuttle in a concealed ravine and made her way to the outpost on foot. As she approached, she heard raised voices from within. "Can't just hand it over, Briggs. Do you have any idea what the Krell would do with this kind of firepower?" "And what about what we just did with it?" Dr. Briggs shot back, his voice strained. "We're scientists, not soldiers. This is way over our heads." Samantha chose that moment to step into view, hands raised. "Gentlemen, I believe I can offer a third option." The assembled scientists whirled, weapons raised. Samantha's cybernetic eye scanned their faces, matching them to personnel files. "At ease," she said calmly. "I'm here on behalf of Admiral Vance. We need to secure that weapon and get you all to safety before—" A deafening roar cut her off as the ground shook beneath their feet. Outside, the sky darkened with the silhouettes of descending Krell warships. "Looks like we're out of time," Samantha muttered, her mind racing. "Dr. Briggs, how quickly can you get that thing operational again?" Briggs paled. "You can't be serious. We barely understand how it works." Samantha's eyes hardened. "Then I suggest you figure it out fast, because in about 2 minutes, we're going to have a whole lot of angry Krell on our doorstep." As Briggs and his team scrambled to reactivate the ancient weapon, Samantha's comm crackled to life. Admiral Vance's voice came through, tight with tension. "Carter, situation's gone critical. The Council's in emergency session with the Krell Chancellor. They're demanding Briggs and his team be turned over immediately. Samantha's lips pursed. Not happening, sir. We've got incoming hostiles. Any reinforcements in the area? Negative, Vance replied. You're on your own out there. And Carter? There's more. We've got reports of a human strike team captured trying to seize a Krell warship in the Caldari Nebula. Damn it, Samantha hissed. This is about to get very complicated, isn't it? As if in answer, the first Krell drop pods slammed into the earth outside the outpost. The air filled with the screech of metal and the chatter of weapons fire. Samantha turned to Briggs, her expression grim. Doctor, whatever you're going to do with that weapon, do it now, because we're about to find out if human ingenuity is a match for Krell firepower. The ancient device hummed to life, its alien circuitry pulsing with energy. As the first wave of Krell soldiers breached the perimeter, Samantha couldn't help but wonder if they just lit the fuse on a powder keg that would engulf the entire galaxy. As the ancient weapon hummed to life, Samantha's comm unit crackled urgently. She pressed it to her ear, straining to hear over the chaos of the Krell assault. Carter, we've got another situation. Admiral Vance's voice cut through the static. Caspian 5 is under attack by an unknown alien force. They're calling themselves the Myriacs. Samantha's cybernetic eye whirred, processing the new information. Understood, sir, but we're a bit preoccupied at the moment. The ground shook as Dr. Briggs activated the alien device. A pulse of energy rippled outward, shredding the approaching Krell forces. Samantha watched in awe as the battlefield fell silent, littered with smoking Krell debris. It worked, Briggs whispered, his face pale. But I don't know how long we can keep it operational. Samantha nodded grimly. Pack it up. We need to move. As the team scrambled to disassemble the device, Samantha's mind raced. The Krell, the Council, and now this new threat, the Myriacs. The galaxy was unraveling at the seams. Hours later, aboard a hastily requisitioned freighter, Samantha gathered with Briggs and his team around a holographic display of Caspian 5. The colony's meager defenses were crumbling under the onslaught of bizarre insectoid ships. They came out of nowhere, a colonial official's voice rang out, tinny and desperate. Our weapons barely scratched them. We need immediate evac. The transmission cut off abruptly. Samantha's fists clenched at her sides. How long until we reach Caspian 5? She asked the pilot. 6 hours, ma'am, but we're hardly equipped for a rescue mission. Samantha's eyes hardened. We'll make do. We always do. As they approached the Caspian system, long-range sensors painted a grim picture. The colony's main starport was a hive of activity, but not from evacuation efforts. A ragtag fleet of civilian ships was scattering in all directions, while the starport itself blazed with weapons fire. What the hell? Briggs muttered, studying the readouts. They're fighting back? Samantha zoomed in on the starport, her cybernetic eye picking out details. Human colonists, miners, and what looked like local mercenaries had fortified the facility. They were holding their own against waves of grotesque drone-like creatures. Pilot, get me a comm link to whoever's in charge down there, Samantha ordered. A gruff voice crackled through the speakers. This is Frank Tanner. Who the hell is this? Samantha Carter, Galactic Council Liaison. What's your situation, Tanner? Situation's foobar, Carter. We've got civilians scattered across half the sector, and more of these bug bastards incoming. But we've got a plan. Before Samantha could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. A massive energy spike erupted from the planet's surface. The starport and everything around it vanished in a blinding flash. Tanner, Samantha shouted, what did you just do? Bought us some time, Tanner's voice replied, now transmitting from a different source. Meet us at these coordinates, and bring whatever fancy toys you've got. We're not done fighting yet. As Samantha's ship changed course to rendezvous with Tanner's survivors, a priority message flashed across her display. Her blood ran cold as she read the report from a Council science vessel. The Myriacs weren't just some random invaders. Their biotechnology was derived from X-Raelian tech, a dark secret the Council had buried long ago, and now a rogue scientist named Elena Chan was about to throw gasoline on the fire. Samantha's mind raced. The Krell conflict, the ancient weapon, and now this Myriax invasion. It was all connected, a tangled web of galactic proportions. And humanity, with its penchant for improvisatio, ingenuity for chaos. As she processed the implications, her comm unit chirped again. "Carter, we've got confirmation," Admiral Vance's voice crackled. "Lieutenant Akira Sato and his team have seized a Krell command ship." Samantha's eyes widened. "They did what?" "Infiltrated a Krell shipyard and captured an Acadian-class dreadnought. The Unrelenting." She shook her head, impressed despite herself. "How in the hell did they pull that off?" "Details are still coming in, but it seems they exploited maintenance access points, used jerry-rigged tech to bypass security. Sato himself took down the Krell commander in hand-to-hand combat." Samantha whistled low. "That's impressive and incredibly reckless." "It gets better," Vance continued. "They disabled the self-destruct through a series of spacewalks. We've got the ship, Carter, intact, with all its weapons and intel." The implications hit her like a thunderbolt. "This changes everything." "It does, but the Council's in an uproar. Some want to integrate humans further into galactic operations. Others are calling for Sato's head on a platter." Samantha's mind raced. "And Caspian 5? The Myriax?" "Still developing, but there are whispers, Carter. A human shadow. Core operating outside Council control, gathering assets, intel." She closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the galaxy pressing down. "What's our play, sir?" "For now, rendezvous with Tanner's survivors. We need to know what happened on that planet. And Carter?" "Sir?" "Watch your back. Things are about to get very complicated." As Samantha's ship approached the coordinates Tanner had provided, she spotted a cluster of battered vessels huddled in the shadow of a small moon. Her sensors picked up life signs, human and something else. She opened a comm channel. "This is Samantha Carter. I'm here to help." A gruff voice responded. "About damn time. We've got wounded, and we're not alone out here." As Samantha maneuvered her ship closer, she saw what Tanner meant. Amid the human vessels were sleek insectoid craft, unlike anything she'd ever seen. "Tanner, what am I looking at?" "Allies, Carter. Turns out not all the Myriax are mindless drones. Some of them wanted out." Samantha's pulse quickened. "You're saying they defected?" "That's exactly what I'm saying, and they've got a hell of a story to tell." As she docked with Tanner's makeshift flotilla, Samantha knew the galaxy would never be the same. The Krell, the Myriax, the ancient weapon, and now this Shadow Core. Humanity was at the center of it all. And she was walking right into the middle of the storm. Samantha's comm unit chirped urgently as she stepped onto the bridge of Tanner's lead vessel. She held up a hand, silencing the chatter around her. "Go ahead, Admiral." Vance's voice crackled through, tense and clipped. "Carter, we've got a situation. The Shadow Corps has gone rogue." Samantha's cybernetic eye whirred, processing the information. "Define rogue, sir." "They've launched a series of attacks on Krell outposts, seized multiple support stations and resupply depots." Tanner leaned in, his weathered face creased with concern. "That's suicide. The Krell will—" "They didn't stop there," Vance cut in. "They've appropriated a fleet of Krell warships, and they're using them." Samantha's mind raced, piecing together the implications. Who's leading this? "Admiral Jonas Brandt, former colonial militia. He's assembled a hybrid fleet and is striking deep into Krell territory." On the main view screen, tactical data streamed in. Samantha watched as blips representing the Shadow Corps' fleet danced across Krell-controlled space, leaving a trail of neutralized targets in their wake. "Those mad bastards are winning," Tanner muttered, a mix of awe and disbelief in his voice. Samantha turned to him. "We need to rendezvous with that fleet, now." Hours later, their small convoy dropped out of FTL on the fringes of a nebula. Before them loomed a mismatched armada of vessels, sleek Krell designs interspersed with cobbled-together human ships. As they approached, a massive destroyer broke formation, its hull filled with hastily retrofitted weaponry. The comms crackled to life. Unidentified vessels, this is the Dauntless. State your business or be fired upon. Samantha leaned forward. This is Samantha Carter, Galactic Council Liaison. I need to speak with Admiral Brandt immediately. A pause then. Negative, Council lapdog. We don't answer to you anymore. Tanner shouldered his way to the comms. Listen here, you trigger-happy idiot. We've got intel on the Myriax and a weapon that could turn this war on its head. So you either let us dock or I'll come over there and kick your ass myself. Another pause, longer this time. Finally, proceed to docking bay 3. Any funny business and we'll space the lot of you. As their ship maneuvered into the cavernous hangar, Samantha took in the organized chaos around them. Human techs swarmed over Krell vessels, welding, rewiring, and jerry-rigging systems with feverish intensity. They were met by a squad of hard-faced Marines who escorted them to the bridge. Admiral Brandt cut an imposing figure, tall, broad-shouldered, with a cybernetic eye that glowed an eerie red. "Make it quick," he growled. "We're about to launch another strike." Samantha stepped forward, her voice level. "Admiral, the Council demands an immediate cessation of hostilities." Brandt's laugh was harsh and humorless. "The Council can go to hell. We're fighting this war our way now." "This isn't just about the Krell anymore," Samantha pressed. "There's a new player, the Myriax, and they're connected to something much bigger." Brandt's cybernetic eye whirred, focusing on her. "I'm listening." As Samantha laid out the situation, the ancient weapon, the Myriax invasion, the Xrelian connection, Brandt's expression grew increasingly grim. "So the Council's been sitting on this powder keg all along," he muttered. "Typical." Tanner stepped forward, his voice gruff. "We've got survivors from Caspian 5, including Myriax defectors. They could be a game changer." Brandt considered this, his organic eye narrowing. "And what do you want in return?" "Coordination," Samantha said firmly. "We pool our resources, our intel. We work together to face these threats." "Without Council oversight," Brandt added, his tone brooking no argument. Samantha hesitated, then nodded. "Agreed, but we need to move fast. The Krell won't stay on the back foot forever, and the Myriax are an unknown quantity." Brandt turned to his tactical officer. "Prep the fleet for jump. We're going hunting." As the bridge erupted into activity, Samantha felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her shoulders. They were about to dive headfirst into a conflict that could reshape the very fabric of known space. And humanity, with its patchwork fleet and unorthodox tactics, was right at the center of it all. The uneasy alliance between Samantha Carter, Frank Tanner, and Admiral Brandt's Shadow Corps was short-lived. As they prepared to launch their first coordinated strike against the Myriax, an urgent transmission cut through the war room's tense atmosphere. "Incoming priority message from Galactic Council headquarters," a communications officer announced. Brandt's cybernetic eye flared. "Put it through!" The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a stern-faced Zephyrian diplomat. "This is Counselor Vexthor. By decree of the Emergency Summit, all human military forces are ordered to stand down immediately and surrender to Council authority." Samantha stepped forward. "Counselor, you don't understand the situation." "The situation, Ms. Carter," Vexthor interrupted, "is that humanity has gone rogue. The Council will no longer tolerate this unchecked aggression." Brandt smacked his head on the console. "Aggression? We're fighting for our survival." "Your protests are noted and dismissed," Vexthor replied coldly. "Supreme Admiral Terath will be assuming command of all operations in this sector. Comply or face the consequences." The transmission cut off abruptly. Silence fell over the war room. Tanner broke it first. "Well, shit!" Brandt turned to Samantha, his organic eye narrowing. "Did you know about this?" She shook her head. "No, I swear. But we need to act fast. If the Council's sending Terath—" "We fight," Brandt growled. "To hell with the Council and their lapdog." Over the next few days, reports filtered in of a massive Council fleet assembling. Ships from a dozen species converged, dwarfing even Brandt's impressive armada. As the Shadow Corps traversed the Tartarus Nebula, seeking advantage in its swirling radiation storms, proximity alarms blared across the fleet. "Multiple contacts!" a sensor officer shouted. "Council ships, closing fast!" The vast expanse of space erupted into chaos. Energy weapons lanced through the nebula's charged particles, creating dazzling light shows as they struck their targets. Human ships, outnumbered and outgunned, fought with desperate ferocity. Aboard the Dauntless, Brant barked orders as his fleet was slowly encircled. "Status on the Krell contingent?" "They're pressing hard on our starboard flank, sir," his XO reported. "We can't hold them much longer." Samantha watched the tactical display with growing dread. The Council's trap was elegant in its simplicity, using the nebula's volatile energy storms to negate humanity's edge in improvisational tactics. Just as all seemed lost, a priority transmission cut through the battle chatter. "This is Lieutenant Akira Sato. I have a plan to turn this fight around, but it's a one-way trip, requesting volunteers for a strike team." Brant's organic eye widened. "Sato? The one who took the unrelenting?" Samantha nodded grimly. "If anyone can pull off a miracle, it's her." As Sato outlined her audacious plan, a squad of elite operatives assembled. Their mission: infiltrate Supreme Admiral Terath's flagship, the Vengeance, and throw the Council's carefully orchestrated assault into disarray. Sato's team launched in modified fighters, weaving through the furball of dogfighting craft swarming around the massive Imlari dreadnought. Exploiting a brief window in the Vengeance's point defense grid, they slipped into a secondary hangar bay. The moment they touched down, all hell broke loose. Sato led the charge, her cybernetically enhanced reflexes allowing her to cut through Imlari security forces with ruthless efficiency. Behind her, tech specialists worked feverishly to disrupt the ship's systems. Alarms blared as fires erupted throughout the Vengeance. On the bridge, Supreme Admiral Terath snarled orders, his command links to the rest of the fleet suddenly severed. Sato fought her way through the ship's winding corridors, leaving a trail of disabled defenders in her wake. As she reached the bridge, she came face to face with Terath himself. The Imlari Admiral's cybernetic enhancements made him a formidable opponent. As they clashed in brutal hand-to-hand combat, Sato's team worked to secure the rest of the ship. Terath's cyberkinetic countermeasures gave him an early advantage, but Sato's relentless assault and unorthodox fighting style began to turn the tide. With a final, desperate lunge, she drove her combat knife through a gap in Terath's defenses. The Supreme Admiral fell, and with him, the Council's carefully laid plans crumbled. As the Vengeance drifted powerless, the rest of the attack force lost cohesion. Brant seized the opportunity, rallying his battered fleet for a devastating counterattack. In the aftermath of the battle, as the Council fleet retreated in disarray, Brant's Shadow Corps found itself with an unexpected prize, the captured Vengeance, along with a wealth of strategic data. Samantha watched as medical teams tended to the grievously wounded Sato. "What now?" she asked Brant. The Admiral's cybernetic eye gleamed. "Now, we take the fight to them, and we show the galaxy what humanity is really capable of." As news of the Shadow Corps' victory spread, a new wave of recruits flocked to join their ranks. Deep in human colonial space, Brant's operatives conducted daring raids to bolster their forces with fresh troops and cutting-edge technology. Meanwhile, in the corridors of power, human diplomats worked tirelessly to exploit the growing cracks in the Galactic Council's facade of unity. Whispers of new alliances with alien insurrectionists began to circulate, promising a shift in the balance of power. Aboard the Dauntless, Samantha pored over intelligence reports, her mind racing. The Council was in chaos, the Krell were reeling, and the Myriax threat still loomed. And at the center of it all stood humanity, unpredictable, adaptable, and now more dangerous than ever. The Dauntless vibrated with activity as Admiral Brant's fleet prepared for their boldest strike yet. Samantha watched technicians swarm over captured Krell vessels, retrofitting alien technology with human ingenuity. "Impressive, isn't it?" A voice startled her from behind. Samantha turned to face a lithe, copper-skinned woman with striking green eyes. "I don't believe we've met." Sharen, the woman replied, extending a hand. Mercenary. Just signed on with your strike team. As they shook hands, Samantha's cybernetic eye whirred, analyzing the newcomer. Something about her seemed off. Before she could probe further, klaxons blared. All personnel, prepare for jump. Brant's voice echoed through the ship. We're taking the fight to the Krell. Hours later, Sharen crouched in the cramped cockpit of a commandeered civilian freighter, hurtling through Krell space. Beside her, a human pilot named Jace expertly wove through a swarm of Krell interceptors. Executing Maneuver Sigma 3, Jace shouted, throwing the ship into a wild spin that no sane pilot would attempt. Somehow, it worked. 2 Krell fighters collided in their wake. Sharen's fingers flew across her console, patching together salvaged Krell tech. Access codes ready in 3, 2, 1. The massive orbital platform loomed before them. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the docking bay doors slid open. We're in, Sharen breathed. The strike team moved with ruthless efficiency through the Krell command station. Sharen hung back, observing the humans' unorthodox tactics. They bypassed security systems in ways that defied conventional logic, yet somehow succeeded. In the central control hub, Sharen connected her custom device to the main computer. Lines of alien code streamed across her visor as she initiated the cyber attack. What's our status? The team leader barked. Sharen's fingers danced across holographic interfaces. Defensive grid is down. Anchorage controls compromised. We've opened a clear path for the fleet. As if on cue, space beyond the viewport erupted with flashes of light. Brant's armada poured into the system, catching the Krell completely off guard. Sharen allowed herself a small smile. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Soon she would have access to all of Brant's secrets. Back aboard the Dauntless, Admiral Brant watched with grim satisfaction as the last Krell stronghold fell. Samantha stood beside him, her expression a mix of awe and concern. Sir, a communications officer called out, we're receiving a priority transmission from the strike team's transport. Brant nodded. Put it through. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing Sharen's face. But gone was the easy camaraderie of before. Her eyes were cold, calculating. Admiral Brant, she said, her voice clipped. I believe it's time we had a frank discussion about the true nature of my mission here. Brant's cybernetic eye flared red. What the hell is this? I am Sharen, agent of the Galactic Council, she replied, and I now possess enough information to crush your little rebellion once and for all. Samantha stepped forward, her suspicions confirmed. You're a spy. Sharen's lips curled into a humorless smile. Indeed, and now I take my leave. The Council sends its regards. The screen went dark. Brant banged his hand on the console. Lock down that transport, now! But it was too late. The small craft had already engaged its hyperdrive, vanishing into the void. Samantha turned to Brant, her mind racing. Admiral, if she has access to our database? Brant's organic eye narrowed dangerously. Then we change the game. Again. He keyed the ship-wide comm. All hands, prepare for immediate jump. We're going hunting. As the Dauntless and its fleet prepared to give chase, Samantha couldn't shake the feeling that they'd just entered an entirely new phase of the Shadow War, one where the lines between ally and enemy were blurrier than ever before. Whoosh! The Dauntless shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, alarms blaring throughout the ship. Admiral Brant gripped the command console, his cybernetic eye scanning tactical readouts. Status report, he barked. Multiple Krell signatures detected, sir, the sensor officer replied, voice tight with tension. They're everywhere. Samantha Carter stepped forward, her face grim. It's a trap. Sharen must have... Her words were cut off as the ship rocked violently, emergency lights flickering. Direct hit to our starboard engine, an ensign shouted. We're losing power. Brant's organic eye narrowed dangerously. All hands, battle stations. Prepare for... The bridge erupted in chaos as a blinding flash tore through the view screen. A Zephyrian stealth vessel, previously undetected, materialized mere kilometers away. Its sleek form glowed with building energy, primed for a killing blow. "Evasive maneuvers!" Brant roared, but it was too late. The Zephyrian ship unleashed its payload, a concentrated burst of exotic particles that shredded through the Dauntless's weakened shields. The bridge disintegrated around them, atmosphere venting into the void. In the pandemonium that followed, the Shadow Corps fractured. Cut off from central command, individual captains struggled to coordinate a defense against the surging Krell counterattack. Aboard the Krell flagship Undying Wrath, Supreme Admiral Jor-El watched the human fleet's disarray with cold satisfaction. His tentacles writhed in anticipation as he addressed his command staff. "The vermin are scattered," Jor-El's translator device conveyed. "Show no mercy. Exterminate them all." Across the battlefield, Krell warships unleashed devastating barrages. Human vessels, caught off guard and leaderless, fell one by one. Those that managed to jump to hyperspace found themselves pursued relentlessly. On the colony world of Helion Alpha, Lieutenant Akira Sato crouched behind a crumbling wall, plasma rounds sizzling overhead. Her strike team, bloodied but unbroken, held a defensive line alongside local militia and terrified civilians. "They just keep coming," Private Chen shouted, his rifle glowing red-hot from sustained fire. Sato gritted her teeth, assessing their dwindling options. The Krell assault was overwhelming, their cybernetically enhanced shock troops advancing with inhuman coordination. In the sky above, Krell capital ships rained death indiscriminately. A desperate plan formed in Sato's mind. She turned to her team's hacker, a gaunt woman with neural implants snaking across her scalp. "Void Wraith," Sato said, using the woman's codename. "I need you to get me into their command network." Void Wraith's eyes widened. "Sir, that's suicide. Their systems will fry your brain." "We're dead anyway if we don't try," Sato replied grimly. "Do it." As Void Wraith worked feverishly to establish a connection, Sato rallied her remaining forces. "Listen up. We've got one shot at this. I need you to buy me time, whatever it takes." The ragtag group of soldiers and civilians nodded, dedication etched on their faces. They knew the stakes. Sato felt a jolt as the neural link engaged, alien data flooding her consciousness. She pushed through the disorientation, navigating the Krell battlenet with singular focus. In orbit, Krell ships began to behave erratically. Targeting systems failed, propulsion cut out mid-maneuver. On the ground, augmented shock troops stumbled, their cybernetic enhancements going haywire. Supreme Admiral Jor-El watched in growing horror as his once unstoppable armada descended into chaos. "What is happening?" he demanded, tentacles lashing in agitation. No one had an answer. The virus spread like wildfire, corrupting every system it touched. Jor-El could only watch helplessly as his fleet tore itself apart, raining debris onto the planet below. On Helion Alpha's surface, Sato's vision blurred as blood trickled from her nose. She'd done it, but the cost was beyond measure. As the colony crumbled around them, she managed a bitter smile. "We broke it," she whispered. "You're welcome." The ground shook as a final salvo of misdirected orbital fire obliterated what remained of the human resistance. In the aftermath, an eerie silence fell over the sector. Across Galactic Council space, urgent messages flooded in. Reports of Krell fleets going dark, entire star systems falling silent. As the full scope of the calamity became clear, Council members gathered in emergency session. Councillor Vexthor, his earlier bravado gone, addressed his peers with growing unease. "We may have gravely underestimated the humans' capacity for disruption." As debate raged over how to respond to this unprecedented crisis, a lone transmission pierced the static of devastated comm channels. The final message from humanity's Void Wraiths, proclaiming their Pyrrhic victory. In the vast, uncaring depths of space, embers of human ingenuity continued to smolder. Unnoticed and unextinguished, they waited. For what, only time would tell.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.